So, Crocodile Army, have you heard the news? There's more talk of military action by one or more countries in the Middle East, in Syria by the United States in this case. Now, I realize that violence in the Middle East could be a headline nearly every day of our lives, and isn't exactly something surprising, but I've heard a lot of talk that has been just hyperbolic nonsense that I want to address. I'll preface this by saying I have not made a decision yet about what action I would support in this case. In fact, I'm not even certain how I would decide, assuming I had a say in the matter. For the sake of this video, let's assume that our opinions matter a great deal. First, if you think that we should never intervene militarily in any situation outside of our borders, short of being directly attacked inside our borders, then this is a slam dunk decision for you. Clearly, you would be against military action. The same could be said for an attack on US citizens, because that hasn't happened in this case either. What has happened is that in the past couple of years, over 100,000 Syrians have died in a civil war. The president of Syria has always been a murderous dictator, but while some of the opposition are secular forces battling for self-determination, some of the opposition are jihadis, who would like to turn Syria into a safe haven for terrorists. Recently, someone used chemical weapons in several locations, killing over 1,000 people, most of them civilians, in rebel-held territory. Yes, but who actually used the weapons? That's a good question that a lot of people are asking. I've seen several articles linked by friends recently saying that it wasn't the Syrian government who used the weapons. One had an interview that was supposed to have been conducted with some anonymous Syrian rebel, admitting that it was their fault and that the rebels actually had chemical weapons, and that it was an accident. It's an interesting story, if true, but aside from the problem of not addressing how they somehow mishandled chemical weapons in several places at the exact same time, there are bigger problems. I've also seen claims that the rebels gassed their own people on purpose to trick us into getting involved. I've seen stories saying that the rebels got their chemical weapons from Saudi Arabia. Another story had them coming from Israel, and still another that they were likely stolen from the Syrian government arsenal. It makes me think that all of those stories are lies. As much as I don't trust the government to be truthful about a reason for military action, I don't trust many of those opposing it either. So how do we find out what the truth is? Well, that's difficult to say. Certainly all sides in this have an agenda, but on the matter of chemical weapons, one side is objectively right. I suspect that it was the Syrian government that did it, but I have no way of knowing for sure. When you're as war-weary as we are in the United States, and after the colossal deception and waste of time and money spent in Iraq, I think it would take tens of thousands of dead in a chemical attack, and the Syrian government claiming responsibility to even get a majority of Americans to support it, much less any European country. So now Obama is trying to convince Congress to give the go-ahead for a limited strike against Syria. If we don't do it, then we're spared getting involved in another foreign conflict. If he does, we will strike them with cruise missiles. They will do a little damage, but probably not enough to make a big difference in the civil war. But at least Assad will know there are consequences for chemical weapons use. And maybe, possibly, some civilians will be saved in the future because of that deterrent. But this will start World War III. Yes, I've actually seen some low-information people write this. Russia is not going to stick their neck out for Syria. Despite their protests, they just want to keep those defense contracts with the Assad regime. The Chinese don't like it either, but they care about Syria even less than Russia does. I have no doubt that Iran and/or Hezbollah may try to strike back somehow, but that's no different from how it is today. So where does all this leave us? If you knew for sure that Syria was gassing its own civilians to death by the thousands, and we didn't intervene, would you be okay with it? Would your opinion change if you and your family were Syrian civilians? This is why I'm torn on this. I don't like war. War sucks 100% of the time, and Syria is no different. As it stands today, I would be okay with not acting yet, as I suspect most of you watching this would be. But when there are innocent people caught in the crossfire that you could help with minimal effort, then I feel like the no action in any circumstances position loses the moral high ground. All options have risks. Pick your poison.